You know the old saying, practice makes perfect. Hi, I'm DDawg Dawson. The kids here at the middle school call me DDawg Dawson. And I'm going to show you how to make an apple look three-dimensional by just starting off with a basic circle. One of the first things that we need to do is to recognize the fact that the apple is basically a circle. So I'm going to take a brown crayon. I think the brown works really well because the colors that mix with the black crayon sometimes darken or they smudge. And I think that the brown is probably the best, and it's light enough to see, and the color will work really well with it. So I'm going to start with a brown crayon, and I'm going to draw a circle by letting my hand slide around on the paper just like this. And I'll go around a few times until I get the motion and until it feels like it's a circle, and then I can just press down. And if you go over it a couple of times and make 2 or 3 rings, that's okay. That really doesn't matter. I'll make it a little darker though so you can see it. The next thing I'm going to do is taking a look at step number 2. And in order to get to step number 6, of course, you need to go through this process of starting from the beginning and working your way through. So we'll start off with the circle, and then I have a diagonal here that shows that sometimes the apple's a little higher on one side and a little lower on the other. And this straight line at the bottom here, this level line, will show that the apple is sitting on the table without rolling off or sliding off. So I'm going to start here, start a little higher on this end, and I'm just going to curve it down like this, dip it down a little bit, then come back up. And I'm also going to curve it in a little bit this way, as if I was sculpting the apple. I want to just sort of carve it a little bit, pretending I'm a sculptor, and I'm just carving this. I'm taking some of this off. If this was a piece of wood, of course, I'd be able to like chisel that wood away. And as I come down here, I'm going to come up and then back down like this. And so I have a couple of bumps here, and I also have here where it dips down, and then it gets a little higher at this end. It looks something like this. Step number 3 is what makes this apple really begin to look 3D, and that is putting that curve in right there. Without the curve, the apple more or less will look very flat. And it almost reminds me of if the stem is just grown on the top. If it's growing from the top of the apple, it sort of reminds me of it doing this. And it so looks like the stem's going to fall back from behind. But by drawing the curve in like this, it looks as if the apple is seated right down into the apple. So we're going to take the stem, start off in an elliptical shape like this, and just draw a line that comes down on both sides. It gets a little thinner as it comes down to here. And already it has that 3D appearance. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use yellow. We'll also put a highlight in there with some white crayon. And if you were to put your finger out and press and touch an apple, a real apple, the closest part of the apple that's to you would be the area that would receive the most light. So how about we put the highlight would be somewhere in this range. So how about we just put a bright spot of white light maybe here. You could also put some across this way if you'd like to. Sometimes there's many highlights, but we definitely want it somewhere in here. And we can also put a little light right along this edge too, either way. Now we'll take some yellow crayon, and we're going to put some really bright yellow behind the stem right here. And I like making it brighter back there because I want the stem to stand out. And I can do that by taking some green. I could put a little green on the stem if I'd like to, or you could use anything you like. If you want yellow and brown, you could do that if you want, that golden color. I could also add some brown to that. I can even add a little black to it and darken it just a little bit more so it shows more of a value contrast. The word value means the lightness and darkness of a color, and contrast is anything that's strongly opposite or different. So by having a value contrast, this dark stem meeting up against the light background really makes the stem stand out. And I can put a little more green up here, and maybe even some yellow green as well. And I could just color in the top of the stem. Oh, yellow works for now. So I'm going to continue this yellow in the background, but I'm also going to bring some to the foreground. And what I want to do is start at the very base of the stem right here and take my yellow crayon and curve it this way. So it's going to curve this way. It's always constantly curving. It curves down like this, and eventually it keeps curving until it comes down to the bottom. This would pretty much be a straight line this way. And then on the right side of the stem, we're going to start from the bottom again and then curve it this way. You can jump over the highlight, and it sort of looks like this. When I go over this now with the red crayon, you'll definitely get to see it much better. Start at the bottom of the stem, and this line will curve this way, and this will curve this way, and this will curve. Notice it has to keep curving. If you draw it straight, it's going to look like spokes on a bicycle wheel. And we want it to keep curving because this apple's three-dimensional, and because it's round, the lines have to curve. So again, start from the bottom here, keep curving, 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 continue the line until you run out. And eventually this will straighten out here. And on the right side, again, we're going to curve. We're going to keep curving until we hit the edge. We're going to curve. We're going to skip over the highlight, come down like this, and just continue to skip over, come down like this, and eventually like this. It's very similar to how you draw a pumpkin. And all we need to do now is just constantly and continually keep drawing these lines like this. And it's a matter of just keep going over and over. See, lines create a sense of a direction and movement. And it's very important that the lines are drawn this way and that we don't just shade it in from left to right, because that would really flatten the form. We want to create the illusion of it being 3D. So by starting right here and drawing the lines curving this way, it's exactly the way the form actually looks. So continue this red and just keep going like this until eventually you get a lot of wax there and it just all fills in. And if you want to put green in there, you can do that. It's all up to you. If you want this to be a Granny Smith apple, this could have just been green. The red lines could be substituted for green lines. You can still put yellow in there if you'd like to. Right now, this is more of a delicious kind of an apple, the way it sort of tapers in a little bit like here. It sort of pulls in a little bit, and then it comes down like this. By pulling it in, tapering it in a little, and then doing that, it sort of gives it more of that kind of look. If it's rounder, of course, it could look more like a Macintosh. So how about I just add some green in there for a little extra color. Green is opposite red on the color wheel, so being complementary, the green makes the red look redder, which is sort of cool. And I can add a little more green to the yellow as well. And again, curve it this way. Always start from the bottom of the stem. And it's just a matter of just constantly doing this. And if you can press really hard with the crayon, you could really create a really nice red. There's a difference from this and this. This is definitely red. I don't know what you call that, but crayons are meant to be pressed really hard. All right, so it just takes time. It's just a matter of doing this. And what I find is that the highlight is the brightest light. So this area sort of is almost like that blinding spot where you really don't see the color very well. So the color's sort of faded out here, and all of a sudden it picks up again. You can put some bright yellow, if you like, around the white. That sort of works really well. And with some of the yellow going over the red, it turns orange. You could add more yellow in here, like this. And you can just continue with the red and just keep filling it in. And eventually, if you add a little black, you can darken this. If you have a sense of light or highlight, then naturally you're going to need to have a darker side or a shadow side. So we can start right from here, and we can just curve this like this. Start from the bottom of the stem, curve this around a few times this way. You could always put a couple of lines up here too to show that. And continue like this. So we're darkening one side, like that. We could also continue this side as well with a little bit of black, not too much, a little bit along the edge. And because this is going to be the brightest area right in here, we could also add some black and darken this in here just a little bit. And darken it just below that highlight area to make it look like the apple is starting from here and then it's curving down under. If you were drawing a leaf, you could just draw the leaf like this and split it in half. And you could also make one side green, and you could always put some black on there to darken the green. And this side here could be a yellow-green. Put some yellow here and some green. And you could always add a little bit of brown too if you wanted to. And what I did with this apple was, after I cut this out with the scissor, I just folded this right in half. So it definitely becomes a little more 3D, and it gives that illusion of the light hitting one side of the leaf and the other side being in shadow. And once I cut this out with the scissor, we'll be able to clean this up and get rid of this brown ring here. And it's amazing how what a difference it makes by just cutting it. It creates that really sharp, clean edge, and it almost makes the apple look really crisp. So there you have it. I hope this tutorial has helped you. And my students that have drawn this in class, my 6th graders drew this, you now have a chance to practice this at home. So give it a try and have some fun.